Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrunvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Idyantasto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Rashtraprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nastiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 8, verses 72 through 75. Verse 72. Triratrante kapitha vadarasana atmavritti anusarena masam ninye archayan harim. Synonyms: three, ratrante, at the end of night. Three, ratrante, at the end of night. Kapitha badar, fruits and berries. Asana, eating. Atma vritti, just to preserve the body. Anusarena, as it was necessary. Minimum. Masam, 1 month. Ninye, passed away. Archayan, worshipping. Harim, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. For the first month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only fruits and berries on every third day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way, he progressed in his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Kapitha is a flower which is known in Indian vernacular as kayeta. We do not find an English equivalent for the name of this flower, but its fruit is generally not accepted by human beings. It is eaten by monkeys in the forest. Dhruva Maharaj, however, accepted such fruits not for luxurious feasting, but just to keep his body and soul together. The body needs food, but a devotee should not accept foodstuff to satisfy the tongue in sense gratification. It is recommended in Bhagavad Gita that one should accept as much food as necessary to keep the body fit, but one should not eat for luxury. Dhruva Maharaj is an acharya, and by undergoing severe austerities and penances, he teaches us how one should execute devotional service. We must carefully know the process of Dhruva Maharaj's service. How severely he passed his days will be shown in later verses. We should always remember that to become a bona fide devotee of the Lord is not an easy task, but in this age, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, has been made very easy. But if we do not follow even the liberal instructions of Lord Chaitanya, how can we expect to discharge our regular duties in devotional service? It is not possible in this age to follow Dhruva Maharaj in his austerity, but the principles must be followed. We should not disregard the regulative principles given by our spiritual master, but they make it easier for the conditioned soul. As far as our ISKCON movement is concerned, we simply ask that one observe the 4 prohibited rules, chant 16 rounds, and instead of indulging in luxurious eating for the tongue, simply accept prasad offered to the Lord. This does not mean that with our fasting, the Lord should also fast. The Lord should be given foodstuff which is as nice as possible, but we should not make it a point to satisfy our own tongue. As far as possible, we should accept simple foodstuff just to keep the body and soul together to execute devotional service. It is our duty to remember always that in comparison to Dhruva Maharaj, we are insignificant. We cannot do anything like what Dhruva Maharaj did for self-realization, because we are absolutely incompetent to execute such service. But by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we have been given all concessions possible for this age. So at least we should always remember that neglect of our prescribed duties and devotional service will not make us successful in the mission we have undertaken. It is our duty to follow in the footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj, for he was very determined. We should also be determined to finish our duties in executing devotional service in this life. We should not wait for another life to finish our job. Text 73. Dvitiyam cha tatha masam shashte shashte de bakodine trina pranadibhis sirne kritanno vyaracharyan vibhum. Dvitiyam, the next month, cha, also, tatha, as mentioned above, masam, month, shashte, every sixth day, arbaka, the innocent boy, dine, on days, trina parna adibhi, by grasses and leaves, sirne, which were dry, krit anna, made for his food, abhyarchana, chayan, and thus continued his method of worship, Vibhum, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divinity Srila Prabhupada. In the second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every 6 days, and for his eatables he took dry grass and leaves. Thus he continued his worship. Text 74. Tityam chanayan vasam navame ani abhabhaksha uttam shlokam upadhavat samadhina. Tityam, the third month, cha, also, anayam, passing, masam, 1 month, navame, on each ninth, ahni, on the day, apabhaksha, drinking water only, uttam shlokam, Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by selected verses, upadhavat, worshipped, samadhina, in trance. Translation. In the third month, he drank water only every 9 days. Thus, he remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by selected verses. Text 75. Rutham api vai masam dvadashe hani vayu bhaksho jitva swaso dhyayan devam adharayat. Chaturtham, fourth, api, also, why, in that way, masam, the month, dvadashe, in the 12th, ahani, day, vayu, air, bhaksha, eating, chittaswasa, controlling the breathing process, dhyayan, meditating, devam, the Supreme Lord, adharayat, worshipped. In the 4th month, Dhruva Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise. Thus, he inhaled air only every 12th day. In this way, he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. End of translation. Om Ajnanatimindasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminite Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Desha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar. So, Hare Krishna all, thank you for joining in. So yesterday Shyamamani Devi Dasi talked about the power of the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master in connection to Narada Muni's instructing King Uttanapada. She covered the difference between the temporary nature of material wealth and power. the importance of spiritual relationships and duties. We read how King Uttanpad gave up everything while lamenting his mistake, that is, neglecting his son Dhruva. Now we are seeing a description of the austerities performed by a small child, but not an ordinary one. He was armed with faith and instructions. Dhruva Maharaj's austere practice of eating only wild fruits like kapit, shows that a devotee's focus should be on maintaining the body just enough for survival, with no indulgence in luxury. His example, although extreme, teaches that spiritual discipline requires strict control over the senses. Krishna explains to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 6:17, Yukta hara viharasya, yukta chetas, karmasu, yukta swapnava bodhasya, yoga bhavati dukkha. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. A devotee should avoid eating for sensory pleasure, but should take just enough prasad to keep the body functional for devotional activities. This is in line with Dhruva's approach, though much more austere to maintain his spiritual focus. Dhruva Maharaj has been addressed as Prabhu, as an Acharya. He is the role model who demonstrates how to engage in devotional service. While his austerities are too severe to follow literally in this age, the principle of being determined and serious in executing one's duties remains relevant. Lord Chaitanya has shared his mercy with the whole world in a simplified path. Follow the regulative principles, chant the holy names, and accept prasadam. This makes devotional service accessible, achievable, without needing to perform extreme penances. We should be inspired by Dhruva Maharaj, his determination. Although we cannot match his intensity, we should remain committed to completing our spiritual duties in this lifetime without procrastination. Srila Prabhupada stated that there was no reason why we could not go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Dhruva Maharaj's austerities were not stagnant, they intensified over time. Moving from eating fruits and berries every third day in the first month, Dhruva now ate only every 6 days, consumed nothing more than dry grass and leaves. This progression symbolizes his deepening renunciation and spiritual focus. Each step represented a new level of detachment from bodily needs and a growing commitment to his spiritual goal of realizing the Supreme Lord. The choice to eat the dry grass and leaves, which are the simplest and least nourishing foodstuffs, demonstrates a high level of detachment from the body. Dhruva's only concern was to keep his body functional, not to satisfy his senses or taste buds. This is a significant lesson in how one can prioritize spiritual advancement over bodily comforts. Although Dhruva's physical condition became more austere, his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead did not waver. His spiritual strength increased as his material dependencies decreased. Dhruva's austerities were directly linked to his goal of achieving the Lord's darshan. His ability to endure such extreme conditions reflected his unwavering concentration on worship. His actions exemplify the great determination required to achieve spiritual success. While his austerities are too intense for most people to follow, they teach the importance of discipline and resolve in spiritual life. His ability to gradually reduce his physical needs while continuing his worship shows that the mind can transcend the body when focused on a higher goal. In the third month of his austerities, Dhruva Maharaj consumed only water. and that too only every 9 days. Water is a basic necessity for sustaining the body. Dhruva Maharaj drastically reduced his intake. By limiting himself to water every 9 days, he further exhibited his immense control over the bodily demands for survival, focusing instead on spiritual survival. This shift to minimal water is a significant step towards detaching from material dependencies. So at this point, Dhruva entered a deep state of trance where his consciousness was entirely fixed on the Supreme Lord. His absorption in worship allowed him to transcend the normal demands of the body, such as hunger and thirst, and align his thoughts solely with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the fourth month, Dhruva Maharaj had perfected the art of pranayama. It helped to bring the physical functions under control, particularly the life force, prana. Dhruva's mastery allowed him to inhale air only once every 12 days, which is an extraordinary level of control over his body's energy systems. Dhruva's austerities reached their peak during this time, and his concentration of the Supreme Personality of Godhead became absolute. By this stage, Dhruva was not just practicing physical austerities, but also spiritually fixed in his position as a determined devotee of the Lord. His mind and senses were fully subdued, and his only focus was on worshipping the Supreme Lord. Dhruva's example teaches the power of determination, discipline, and unwavering focus on God. For modern practitioners, Lord Chaitanya has simplified the path, but the underlying principles of spiritual discipline and dedication remain vital. No purports to elaborate further, however, this story reminds us of Srila Prabhupada's quote, simple living, high thinking. While Dhruva Maharaj's austerities are beyond the reach of most, the underlying principles of simplicity, sense control, dedication to worship, and firm focus on spiritual goals are timeless. These can be practically applied by cultivating a simple lifestyle, being moderate in eating and consumption, practicing mindfulness, remaining committed to daily spiritual practices. By integrating these principles into daily life, devotees can strive for spiritual growth in a practical and balanced way. As we read, instructed in Bhagavad Gita, Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloka Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtavi. By regular attendance in classes in Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental song, is established as an irrevocable fact. So with this, I'll stop. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope that we continue our practices in the best possible way that is possible for us in this stage, and at every stage of one person's life. Starting with younger people can undertake more and gradually increase, and like older people, as they get older, their sleep diminishes, so they can also continue at least reading and passing on the practical information realized onto the younger generation.